Hey, what's going on, guys? We have a fun, scary, spooky mystery video today, and this of course comes from a channel called Weird World. So make sure to check them out. They will be linked in the description down below. I'm really excited for this. We're looking at the Eerie Min lights of Outback, Australia. I'm super pumped up for this. The Outback is so huge and vast and beautiful, but dangerous for many reasons. And then come on, it's that big. Imagine what the night sky could bring. You never know. Let's learn about this. Grab a snack, grab a drink, and keep an eye out, right? Just kidding. Let's watch.
Min is an unexplained light phenomenon that has often been reported in Outback Australia. The lights are so common and have been around for so many years that they are even part of Aboriginal mythology. Since European settlement, they have now become part of European folklore.
Okay, so my first impression is that this is semi-legit or pretty powerful. And the reason is not only do modern people believe it or still think they've seen it, but that the indigenous Australians, these Aboriginal men and women, they possibly have some stories, mythology about it as well. And anyone indigenous to land that's been around for generations upon generations, thousands of years, they are very in tune with their environment, with their land. And I tend to believe a lot of what they think or say about something significant.
Indigenous Australians claim that sightings of the Min lights appear to have increased since European settlement when they ventured further into the outback.
Oof.
The name Min derives from a small settlement of the same name, located between the outback towns of Boulia and Winton, where the light was observed by stockmen in 1918. However, it has been claimed that the first recorded sighting dates back to 1838. According to folklore, the lights sometimes follow or approach people and disappear when fired upon, sometimes very rapidly, only to reappear later on, and anyone who chases the lights and catches them will never return to tell the tale. The Min lights are described as shimmering orbs that can range in colour, including blue, white, green, red and yellow, sometimes change between all three, as well as take different sizes. Others have described them having fuzzy edges that appear to pulsate.
Wow.
These lights can move slowly and then suddenly move very fast like a shooting star. 1 second they may move in a straight line and the next second they may bounce around. On rare occasions, they've been known to break into two separate lights and then shoot off in two different directions.
Holy smokes.
Some people describe them as having intelligence, where the light actually follows them, and when they try to approach the lights, they quickly move away from them. Others have said that when the lights are around them, they have a feeling of dread and confusion, leaving them feeling uneasy.
Oh, geez.
The lights will suddenly vanish into thin air and can be extremely disconcerting when you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere. You are in super vast, rugged outback. And, you could be hours from the nearest sign of civilization, right? The ultimate definition of middle of nowhere. So I suppose your mind could play tricks on you. That is a real thing, right? You can get paranoid or have some anxiety when you are in a weird environment or a very lonely environment like that. I'm also a fan of and tend to believe that, a lot of spots on our earth, a lot of things have a lot of energy, a lot of power. And this is clearly some powerful energy of some sort, maybe even negative energy, right? If it gives these people uneasy feelings, they see it and they're not sure what's going on. They have ultimate confusion and maybe even bad vibes, a sense of danger or a sense of extreme discomfort. Ooh, it's freaky. This is getting good. We're only 2 minutes in. And I like this, though. This is entertaining. See where this goes.
Other stories regarding the lights claim that they are spirits, while some believe seeing the lights was a bad omen.
Ooh.
Another interesting fact is that these lights may not be unique to Australia. In Saudi Arabia, people name this phenomenon Abu Fanuz, which means the man with the lamp in Arabic.
Wow.
In the United States, they're often called spook lights, ghost lights, or orbs by folklorists and paranormal enthusiasts.
Yeah, I've never heard of spook lights, even though I'm American. But I've heard a lot about orbs, energy orbs. There's a lot of crazy places in the U.S., a lot of desolate, barren deserts, and crazy forests here in the U.S. So I'm not surprised that there would be phenomenon like this. Of course, this little paper that is shown, I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's almost illegible. But it does say spook light, the tri-state spook light, mysterious lights of the Ozarks. And for reference, the Ozarks are a mountain range down in Missouri, Oklahoma, and Arkansas.
The following stories are accounts from people who experienced the Memin lights firsthand. Henry Lamond. In 1937, Henry was a rancher who claimed that he'd been out on horseback early one morning at about 2 a.m.
Ooh, that is early.
As he was riding along singing to himself, he spotted in the distance what he believed to be cars' headlights. He initially thought it strange because in 1937, cars were not all that common in the Outback, and being miles from anywhere, he thought it unusual. However, things began to get very strange very quickly. The light then appeared to get stronger, so strong that it was able to pick out individual hairs on the horse's mane.
Oh, man.
It suddenly became apparent to Henry that they were not car headlights because what was heading towards him was not two headlights but a bulbous ball. Instead of the yellowy whitish glow of a car headlight was actually a greenish glare, and besides, it floated too high in the air to be a car's headlights. Henry felt that there was something very eerie about it. The light looked like a bubble slowly moving around, and he figured it was moving at around 10 miles per hour and about 5 to 10 feet above the ground. It had the appearance of a newly risen moon. The light then shot past him, and when it was about 200 yards away from him, it suddenly vanished, like turning off a light bulb.
Oh, jeez.
Bill
That is
Boyan.
weird. So that's the first account, and wow. Can you imagine that? You're out on your horse at 2 a.m. That's hard to imagine because I personally wouldn't do that. That's quite early. When I think of an early morning, I'm thinking like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. 2 a.m., geez, that's still nighttime to me. But, way out in the middle Outback, 2 a.m., I imagine you're going to see some weird stuff. The guy had it coming. But how do you explain that they're different colors, right, for different occurrences? These were like a weird greenish color, 10 feet off the ground, and coming fast, but not terribly fast, until they got near him, and then they just vanished the other way, and then we're out of sight. Super, super weird. What is the story? Tell me down in the comments. Do you think these are spirits? You think these are ancient ghosts or spiritual beings that have some story around that land? Or is it just something random and maybe just pure bad energy or some sort of, evil omen? What's the story?
37, Bill Boyan worked for a West Australian newspaper called the Western Mail. I wrote a column called Bill Boyan. In 1937, Bill Boyan worked for a West Australian newspaper called the Western Mail. I wrote a column called On the Track. On many occasions, he received letters from people claiming to have seen strange lights. Bill himself even had an encounter with the lights. He describes the following. We were all sitting looking into the darkness, well away from the dying campfire and enjoying the cool air after the heat of the day, when he suddenly saw a light. At first, he thought it was someone waving a lantern, but it suddenly rose higher into the air, danced a few jigs and hovered about, first high and then low, but always keeping at about 50 yards distant. This description was almost identical to the previous story of Henry Lamond. He asked his companions where the light had come from, and he suggested they follow it. Then one of the men warned him, saying, "It'll lead you to destruction." Where that light is, it leads right into a chasm with a drop of 300 or 400 feet. And as soon as you get close to the light, out it'll go over the abyss. But Boyan was more curious than superstitious and decided to ignore the warning. He then set off after the light and then strode on into the darkness. He had got to within perhaps 20 yards of the peculiar light, which was still hovering like some huge ball of glowing embers in mid.
I'm a believer in curiosity killed the cat, right? Something sketchy like that, super weird, super bizarre. If you're lucky enough to see it from afar, be cool with that and move on. I'm not following something like that in the middle of the dark Outback. No way.
Mid-air, about 7 or 8 feet from the ground, perhaps 20 yards of the peculiar light, which was still hovering like some huge ball of glowing embers in mid-air, about 7 or 8 feet from the ground, when suddenly it swerved abruptly to one side. A man's warning voice came through the darkness. "The abyss ain't a dozen yards from where you are. Come back, come back." He stopped, but not before what he had seen. True to the old fellow's words, that strange light had indeed drifted out over the great chasm.
Oh, geez.
As he watched, the light hesitated, floated back a little towards him, then as though tempting him to follow, but at the same time annoyed at the possibility of losing a victim, it glided back again over the chasm, where, with a few final erratic movements, it dropped from sight.
Oh,
Had Bill Boyan
man.
just seen a strange ball of energy, or an intelligent thinking orb?
Yeah.
Either way, it did not appear to have his best intentions at heart.
No. Yeah, so the narrator made a good point there. This could just be a random ball of energy or some sort of almost, hallucination from just being out in the desert, maybe being in the heat, a number of things. But it seems to almost have, organized behavior. The fact that it can seem like it's taunting you and leading you to danger doesn't seem so random.
Carl had the following experience with strange lights whilst driving in the Outback. He had a long drive from Inaminka in north-east South Australia to Boulia in central West Queensland.
Also, something to mention that's mind-blowing about maps and how big Australia is on the map, this doesn't look terribly long, but look, that's a 10-hour drive.
A drive that would take him about 10 hours and 30 minutes. From Boulia, he then headed north to the mining town of Mount Isa. That was a further 3.5 hours. This is where his unusual event started to happen. After leaving Boulia, he was a few miles out of town when he noticed what he believed to be a pair of headlights tailgating him.
Again.
After a short while, the glaring lights started to get really annoying, so he then beckoned whoever was behind him to overtake, but they just stayed behind him.
Oh, that's
Carl
scary.
then tried another tactic by just slowing down, hoping to annoy them so they'd eventually pass. It was at this stage that he suddenly realised that they were not car headlights. He then stopped the car, where the strange lights then flew around his car. He'd heard of the local legend and figured they were Mimin lights. He quickly grabbed for his camera to take a photo when one of the lights got close to his car. It then began to hover closer and closer and started to blind him. Then all of a sudden, it dissolved into nothing and seemed to disappear just as the sun came up. The whole ordeal with the Mimin lights frightened him so much that in the future, he always avoided that route.
Oh, that would be frightening for sure.
Dan's first...
And I think they can change like everything. Their color, their brightness. Sometimes they're bright, but not blinding. And in this case, he wanted to get a camera out. He think, hey, I'm going to flip the script on you. I'm going to get a picture of this and expose your ass, right? And they got so bright that it would ruin the picture essentially and especially blind him. So, yeah, these things are, whatever they are, these Min lights seem to be calculated, seem to be something intelligent, and it just makes you wonder. It's like so bizarre.
Experience with the Mimin lights was in 2003-2004 when he was living in the north coast of New South Wales. A friend of Dan's was telling him that he kept seeing what he believed to be people constantly walking around with lights.
Ugh.
Dan said there couldn't possibly be people walking around because he lives in the middle of nowhere. Who could possibly be walking around with lights?
Oh my God.
One night, they both went out to see if they could observe what his friend was talking about, and on that particular evening, found nothing out of the ordinary. They went out again 2 weeks later and were looking up at a hill and saw the white lights dancing around and playing with each other and appeared to be making the figure 8. They were about 150 to 200 metres away. Their first thought was that they were fireflies, but firstly, they'd never seen fireflies in this area before, and secondly, the lights were far too large to be fireflies.
Right.
In fact, they were like large basketballs of lights, and they made no sound.
Oh, geez.
They would dim down and then suddenly brighten up and disappear. This was Dan's first sighting of the lights, and because he'd grown up hearing the legend of the Mimin lights, assumed that is what they were.
Oh my God.
What confused him was that he believed the lights only appeared in the Outback desert regions and not in their coastal region. What further confused him was that if they appeared to be the size of basketballs from 200 metres away, how large were they close up?
Oh, yeah.
Although Dan was curious of what these lights could have been, he was not at all afraid. However, his friend was quite fearful, and after many years of residing at the property, he'd had enough, and seeing these lights dancing around was too much for him, and he moved out 3 months later.
He's like, I'm
Dan's
out.
property was about
I'm
50
outta here.
minutes away from his friends, and a few years later in 2016, started to see the lights near his property.
Oh,
They were white,
jeez.
red and orange in colour and just danced around.
Whoa.
One night he was looking out the back of his property and observed a white orb floating around and called his wife. On arriving, she pointed out other lights that were also floating around.
Oh, my God.
Another time, a friend was visiting and pointed out to Dan that there were red
This is
orbs
too
high
weird,
up in
man.
the sky. They then drove up high to get a closer look. The previous lights were always close to the ground, while these were 3 red orbs high up in the sky. On another occasion, he had some overseas guests visiting at his property,
Okay.
and when Dan was in the backyard, a huge white light appeared about 100 metres in the sky, and he called out his guests, who all observed the light show and clapped and cheered at what they were seeing. To try and
They're
get some
cheering
sort
for
of
it.
explanation for what he was experiencing, Dan visited an Aboriginal elder who told him that his property was surrounded by Aboriginal sacred lands and that the lights were the spirits of the Aboriginals protecting the land.
Ah, that's what I was thinking in the beginning. All right, so that is one explanation, and a good one. That's what I was kind of getting at, is that they are spirits of people that were there a long time ago, and they are watching over their land. So that is the most logical. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to agree with that. But what do you guys think? Let's talk about this in the comments. That was really fun. That was really fun. A little chilling, right? A little bizarre. That would not be a pleasant experience driving on some freaky, desolate dirt road out in the Outback at night and seeing what you think is someone tailgating you, which is already kind of freaky enough. And then you find out, oh, wait, that's not a car. That is straight up orbs following me. And the fact that they're there, that I can see them, what is going on here? So, yeah, really, really weird. There's probably a lot more I could do on this, too, so I might revisit this at another time. Definitely tell your stories down below. Come on, I want to hear this. Have you guys seen the Min Min lights? Have you seen something similar? Definitely tell me down below. I have seen some bizarre stuff in my life. Not too much, but I haven't seen anything really relating to these. I haven't personally seen anything resembling orbs or a Min Min light. So I guess I'll turn this to you guys. What have you seen? Tell me down below. Give me a thumbs up if you had some fun and got a little chill up your back watching that. Subscribe for more stuff like this. Can't wait to see what you guys suggest and tell me down below. My name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker. Check out the description of ways you can support the channel. Check out the Discord. I'll catch you later.